Om Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvabhignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Yenakshara Samamnayam Adhigamya Maheshwarat Kritsnam Vyakaranam Proktam Tasmai Paninaye Namaha Vakyakaram Vararuchim Bhashyakaram Patanjalim Paninim Sutrakarancha Pranatosmi Munitrayam Vagarthaviva Sampraktau Vagarthah Pratipattaye Jagadav Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste. Happy Thursday. We'll get started with class. So just to remind us of our vision of why we're learning Sanskrit is we're not learning Sanskrit to be Sanskrit scholars, right? That's never been our goal. Our goal is so that we could access Shastra, our scriptures. We do that so we can, our Shravanam, our study of the scriptures can be more thorough. And that's important, right? Because that the scriptures are a means of knowledge, a pramanam to knowing myself. So finally, why do I do all this? I do this because I want moksha. I want freedom. I want happiness, right? That's really why we're doing all this. So it's always good to remind us of why we're doing this. So I have to talk about happiness because we have to go into Dhatu Kosha first thing. So you have to put a smile on your face and then enter the Dhatu Kosha. So if you see on the screen right now, you'll see I have Vraj and Hr. Vraj, 1P, to go. And on the right, you see Pari Vraj. So on the Dhatu Kosha, you can look it up and you'll find this. Okay, so if you see on the screen Vraj, this is page 98, 99. So you see Vraj, and then you can go down and Pari Vraj, to wander about. Right, to wander about as a sannyasi. Okay, so Parivraj would mean he, she, it wanders about like a sannyasi. So the verb in third one would be parivrajati, right? Because it's 1P. The next one, if you go hr dhatu, 1U, to take away, parihr and udahr. Okay, so this you can look up in the, this is, let me tell you what page this is. This is page 107. So you can open to 107 in the Dhatu Kosha. So we're looking parihr. No, not parihr. What was it? But yeah, parihr, which I don't have on the screen. Can someone tell me what parihr is on 108 in the chat? What's the meaning in English? Is it there or is it not there? So it should be page 108. Okay, so someone said to avoid. Okay, there's a few people saying to avoid. Yeah, so parihr would be to avoid, and the verb would be pariharati. Okay, and the reason I pulled up this next example, it says ud a r. Okay, so we've been talking about, so just a reminder, right? We've been talking about these upasargas. So what an upasarga is, we have these 22 little things we call pradigana. These 22 little, what we call particles, they're called pradigana. And this pradigana, when it's added to a dhatu, is called a upasarga. Okay, so that when that pradi is added to the dhatu, it becomes an upasarga. And there's 22 of them. And we saw that when each of these are added, then the meaning of the verb will change, right? So harati means to take away, but pariharati means to avoid. He, she, it avoids. Now, we can add one of these pradi or one of these upasargas, these prefixes, or we can add multiple at the same time. So sometimes you'll see that as well. So in the example that we're looking at, it says ud a r. So notice that there's two upasargas, two prefixes there, ud and a. Now then if you pull it up in your dictionary, you'll see ud right here in the middle. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but ud, you'll see in the middle there. And you'll see uda. So this is ud, and this is uda. We want uda, right? We want uda because we're looking at ud plus a plus r. Okay? So not just ud. We're not looking at just ud. We're looking at uda because ud plus a plus r. So notice the difference. There's a difference in meaning between these two as well. So we need to look at that carefully. So to relate, to narrate, to declare, to say, to speak. Okay, so udaharati. He, she, it narrates. He, she, it speaks. Okay, does anybody have any questions with the dhatu kosha and specifically these upasargas? You can let me know. Just you can write a question mark in the chat. I will unmute you. Okay. So if there's no questions, then we'll continue where we're at. So we're going to go into a few different topics today. So I might be flipping around pages, but if that's the case, just I'll let you know where we're going. Davat. So there's a question. First one is, any tips on searching within the dhatu kosha? So are there any tips on searching within the dhatu kosha? So I guess the tips that I have are what we've talked about in last week's class. Or if you see in the last week's email, those steps are kind of will help with searching within the dhatu kosha. But sometimes you won't need that, right? But I would say if you're looking for tips, look at that last week's class and look at that email. And there's one question about Davat. I can answer that through email. I don't want to open that dhatu kosha right now. We can look at that later. Hariprasad ji, you have a question?
Yes, sir. You are going a little bit fast for me, but
okay.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
You said uda.
Yeah.
You said ud plus a.
Ud plus a, correct.
Okay. But ud is ud plus a. They are not. They are not pradiganas.
Yeah, so if I pull up, let me pull up the pradigana list. So
where is I don't see a.
Oh, so okay, yeah. So that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So if you look at number 12 on this list, number 12 says ang. Now, ang, that last letter goes, that nasal letter. So it becomes
Oh,
ah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that. So that number 12 is ang, but that nasal letter at the end, that goes away and it becomes just ah.
Okay, thank
So
you.
then we have ud plus ah. So ud
Okay.
is also on here, and then ah.
Yeah.
And then you want to find them together on here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yes. Now there's another question about, do we take the first one when there are more than one? So why are we taking, do we take ud first, then ah, or do we take ah, then ud? So you want to just follow what it says. You want to follow that same order. So if it's ud plus ah plus hr, then find uda, not ah, then ud. Okay? You want to find uda, yeah. So you start with the first one when there are more than one. And then you add the, so you can even see some more examples, right? This one up here. This is anu sama. That's anu plus sam plus a. There's three. So anu plus sam plus a plus hr means to compensate, join, etc. This one is adhi plus a becomes adhya. There's a sandhi rule. So you can see different examples when there's more than one upasarga, you'll see they're added here. So you won't, I mean, you have to know. That's why it's helpful to know the 22 pradigana or have them referenceable so that you know which ones are combination and which ones are just by themselves. But either way, what we're usually doing is we're going to look up words that we already find in the book or in a textbook. So you're never making these verbs necessarily, but you're usually looking them up. And so you can look up that suffix, or the prefix rather, the prefixes. So I hope that makes sense. So if there's more than one, you still look it up the same way and you add them together, and that can sometimes change the meaning. Okay, so we're going to switch topics slightly. Okay, there's one last question now. Yeah, Neelamaji?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this Dhatu Kosha after the word ru.
Mm-hmm.
There is another word, it looks like ru, but it's a little different. To a ru.
Yeah. So that's ha plus nakara plus u. I think it's nu.
Okay.
H and U.
H and okay.
A little hard to pronounce, but nu. So that's a different dhatu that's there.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so what we're going to be talking for the rest of the class is something called prayoga, or three voices. Now, not voice like quiet voice, loud voice. These are specific, it's a specific grammatical term called voice of prayoga. Now, there's three that we're going to talk about, and we're going to be talking about all mainly active and passive voice a little bit more in depth. But to understand that, we need to do some background work. So we'll come to this. I'm going to have to introduce certain topics to get us here. To understand kartari prayoga, active voice, and karmani prayoga, first we need to understand what a karta is and a karma is. Okay, because you see in this word kartari, there's the word karta, and in the word karmani, there's the word karma. So we need to understand what do we mean by karta and karma in the context of grammar. because in Vedanta and in normal language, we might understand these terms differently. So how do we specifically understand them here? For that, we need to go to the beginning of the book, topic 3, factors of action, karakam. So you'll see on the first page this karakam. So if someone can type in the page number of karakam, it should be near the beginning of the book. I don't have my physical book with me, so that's why I might need some help typing the page numbers. Okay, page 11. So you'll see there's a page 11, basic concepts of karakam on page 11 of book 1. Now, the simple translation of the word karakam is factors of action. Okay, factors that are related to an action. So with reference to any action that we have, there are many things that are going to be related to that action word. And Panini Muni has called those things that are related as karakas. Right, so for example, okay, let's say, I want to say, we'll see some more example, but running, right? Runs, let's do runs. Runs is my action. Now there's going to be different things that are connected to this that are going to get different status. So who runs? Devadattaha runs. So he is the doer of action. Where does he run to? He runs to the griham, to his house. That is the object of the verb run. We're going to go through all these. I just want to give some examples of what I mean by karaka. What does he run with? He runs with his feet. This is the instrument of action. So notice how there's different factors that are connected to this one verb, this one action word. So when we're making a sentence, I say, Devadatta runs to the house with his feet. Now, there's only one action word, but there's 3 different nouns that are connected to that verb, and they have different relationships with that verb. The reason why this is important, we'll see later on, is that Sanskrit doesn't have word order, right? There's no word order. We can change all the words. So you need to understand what is the relationship between the noun and the verb so that you can make sense of the sentence. So no matter what way I switch up all the words in a Sanskrit sentence, I would still have the same understanding because I can understand how they're all connected to the verb individually. Not sure if that makes sense, but we'll see some examples. Okay, there's 6 in number. We're only going to talk about the first teeth, so I don't want to put that 6 up there right now. We're just going to start with the first one, karta, right? Because we're going to be talking about kartari prayoga, so we need to talk about what is the karta. Okay. So karta, the simple English translation is agent of action or the doer of action, right? So the agent or the one who does the action, the doer, gets a technical name, karta. And this is one of the main karakas. So you always want to look for the karta first. Okay. So let's look at some examples. Karta, let me know if I'm going too fast. So karta, so he sees the elephant is the first example. He sees the elephant. Now the first thing I want to look up is what is the action here? What is the verb? Now the verb I say is sees, right? Sees. I always want to look for that verb. So I see the verb sees. Now He sees the elephant. Now, with reference to the action of seeing, who is the doer? He, right? He is the karta. Because he is the doer of the action of seeing. So now that word he gets the technical term karta. Here, this number example, they see the elephant, right? So you first want to find the action, see. Who sees? They see. So with reference to the action of seeing, they are the karta. Okay? Let's look at some more examples. Devadatta falls. With reference to the action of falling, Devadatta is the karta because he's the doer of the action of falling. There are scriptures. With reference to with reference to the action of being is scriptures are the karta, right? Because the scriptures are. Now this next example, it's a little bit tricky, so I'm going to test you guys. Devadatta sees Somadatta who is cooking. There's two action words here. First one, with reference to the action of seeing, who is the karta? And then with reference to the action of cooking, who is the karta? So put the first karta, comma, second karta. First karta, comma, second karta in the chat box. Yep, so I'm getting a few answers here. Yep, looking good. Yeah, so with reference to the action of seeing, who is seeing? Devadatta. I like someone abbreviated it Didi. Didi, Didi is seeing. Okay, because Somadatta is not seeing. Devadatta is seeing. But Somadatta is cooking. So with reference to the action of cooking, SD, Somadatta, is cooking. So we can write that in here. DD is the karta and ST is the karta. So you have to notice with different action words, there might be a different karta. Okay? So you have to pay attention to the action words in the sentence. These verbs. Or verb-like words. Okay? So thumbs up if we get the karta. Okay. So this is all in your book, so you can follow along. The next one is a karma. Okay, so the next type of karaka, the second type of karaka, which is really important, is what we call karma. Now, karma, in Vedanta has a different meaning, right? Or it usually has a different meaning. But here it's a technical grammatical term which refers to the object of action. Okay, the object of action. So we'll see examples and it'll make more sense. He sees the elephants. Now, what is the action word? Sees. So with reference to the action of seeing, who is the karta? He is the karta because he sees. And he sees what? He sees the elephants. So the elephants are the object of the action. They are what he is seeing. So sometimes it's helpful when we're asking the karta, we say, who did that? So we ask the question, who? So who sees? And that will give us the answer for the karta. And what is the object? So what did they see? And that will give us the answer for the karta. Okay, so let's look at the second example. Elephants are seen by him. Okay? Are seen by him. So with the reference to the action of seeing, who is the karta? this is tricky. He is the karta because it's seen by him. So notice that order doesn't matter. He is the karta because he is seeing. And he sees what? Elephants. Okay, these are the two of the same, these two sentences mean the same thing, but they're different prayogas, which we'll see later. Elephants are seen by him. Okay, so they're seen by him. So he is the doer of the action of seeing, and the elephants are the object. He's what he's seeing, right? So he is seeing that is my elephant. I don't know what that is, but he is seeing it, right? You can see it, and so they're seen by him. He sees it, or they're seen by him. I think that's the most modern art. We can call it modern art. I can sell it for a lot of money. All right. It's like cave drawings. Okay. Now, you're going to help me with these next few, okay? So, Devadatta goes to the village. With reference to the action of going, who is the karta, comma, who is the karma? Okay, we're seeing a few answers here. Yeah, looking good. So, Diribaya Devadatta is the karta. He's the doer of the action of going because he goes. And he goes where? Or he goes to what? He goes to the village. So the village is the karma. Okay, so Diri and village. Village is the karma. So he's going to the village. Devadatta sees Somadatta who is cooking rice. Now there's two action words. So this is number one and this is number two. You can put them in the chat. So you put blank, comma, blank, and then blank, comma, blank. So number one, we're looking at, I see some answers for number one. With reference to the action of seeing, Devadatta is the karta and he sees Somadatta is the karma. Yeah, so that's correct, everyone who's said that. Now number two, can everyone write number two who hasn't written it yet in the chat? With reference to the action of cooking, who is cooking? Yep, looks good. So Somadatta ji is cooking. He is the karta. And what is he cooking? Or what is the object of his cooking? The rice. Odanam. Sadam. Okay, so we're going to put the rice. So rice. Rice is the karma. Yep. So notice how Somadatta is both the karma with reference to one action and he's the karta with reference to a different action. Okay, so this gets a little bit more complicated than it looks. So it doesn't have to, it can be, depending on different actions, it could be both, it can be a karta and for a different action, it could be a karma as well. Okay, so karta and karma. So now you'll see, notice that Vedanta teachers will bring up karta and karma, like when they're explaining Brahmarpanam or different sentences, sometimes they'll bring up these karakas. So just note that karakas will come up sometime. Okay, now we're gonna go back to prayoga. Full circle, okay? So we're gonna finish, there's 4 more karakas. There's 6 karakas, we've only covered 2. But 2 are only relevant right now. So I can cover all six. So last time when we did the class, I covered all six, and then I covered prayoga. But I feel like that, I want to be a little bit more purposeful. So we only need the first two right now, the first two karakas. So we only covered karta karaka and karma karaka. Now we want to talk about prayoga. Okay, so someone tell me where in the book this active voice, it's in the beginning again, right after karaka. It should be right after karaka. So you can tell me what page it's on. Page 24, I believe. Okay, so there's a big paragraph about Kartari Prayoga, but it's more complicated than it needs to be. So I'm going to make it a little bit more simple. Okay. So when the verb, let's say the verb, when the verb denotes or points to the karta, then that is what we call kartari prayoga. Then the verb is in kartari prayoga. So kartari prayoga is when the verb denotes or points to the karta. When the verb denotes or points to the karta. Okay, so let me just pull up that page. Okay, so in the book, some examples are given. So in karta, it says drish. Okay, so in the book, it gives drish. So let's look at drish. Okay, so if I say, Devaha Pashyati. Okay, so this is from the root drish, but when we conjugate, when we make it into the full verb, it becomes pashyati. So the deva sees. Now notice that the verb here, pashyati, is pointing to the deva. It's connected initially to the deva. So who sees? The deva sees. Right? So it's pointing to the deva, which is the karta. So Ramaha Vanam Gacchati. This is Rama goes to the forest. So this Gacchati, goes, is referring to what? It points to or denotes the karta, Rama. And Vanam would be the karma, right? But we don't need, that's not relevant for us. All we need to know is the karta, the verb denotes the karta. Okay, now we'll look at one last thing. I'll just start introducing karmani and we'll follow it up in our next class. Karmani prayoga. So karmani prayoga is when the verb denotes or points to the karma. I don't know why it's so. Okay, so here we can look at the example of Gajaha. So Gajaha Drishyate. Gajaha Drishyate. So the elephant is seen. Okay, so here the verb points to the object. So what is seen? The object. It points to the object of the sentence, the karma. Right? So here the elephant is seen. So it's pointing to that. Drishyate is really denoting or pointing to the karma, the object, elephant. Okay? So we can say now, okay, we have to wrap up our class, but I just want to point out one last thing, is that we can say elephant, so he sees the elephant, and the elephant is seen by him. Okay, so these two sentences mean the exact same thing. Number one, sees. He sees the elephant. The verb sees is pointing to the karta. So this is kartari prayoga. Here, the seeing refers to the elephant. So this is karmani prayoga. Notice that these two sentences mean the same thing, it's just a slightly different structure. This structure change is what we refer to as prayoga. They mean the same thing, right? He sees the elephant or the elephant is seen by him. One is active voice, kartari prayoga, and one is passive voice, karmani prayoga. Okay, with that, we'll conclude here. I'll take some questions. We'll start at 8:12. And if you have any questions, and I'll finish this lesson in our next class. We'll continue with karmani prayoga, and I'll tell you what your homework is in the email. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Come back at 8:12. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Nirmaji, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. In the Kartari voice, when you use the sentence, he sees the elephant.
Yeah.
say we say Saha Gajaha Pashyati.
Mhm.
And when you do that in Karmani, the elephant is seen by him, Gajaha Drushyante. So why do we use Pashyat in Kartari and Drushyante in Karmani?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that next time. So first of all, it's Saha Gajam Drishyati or Pashyati, sorry. And then
Gajam Pashyati.
Gajaha
Drushyante.
Drishyate Tena by him. Or
Oh, Drishyate Ten. Okay.
Drishyate. So we use it because, yeah, we'll talk about it. It's a little bit more,
Okay.
we'll talk about it in our next
No
class. You just take the dhatu by itself and you don't transform it like we would.
Okay.
So you take the drish dhatu and then you just add it to the yakara, and the yakara is added to the verb when you're in Karamani.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I still didn't understand the answer.